Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. Authorities in Taiwan are applauding the courageous actions of several Good Samaritans this week after they intervened in a terrifying knife attack aboard a subway train, one that happened on the 10th anniversary of an eerily similar incident. The whole thing began on the morning of May 21st when the suspect, a 20-year-old man identified only by the last name of Hung, arrived at the Shui An Temple Station, located along the Taichung Mass Rapid Transit System's Green Line. Once inside, Hung boarded a train at around 11:15 a.m. As the train headed towards City Hall Station, the 20-year-old set down a backpack on a nearby luggage rack. That's when he allegedly pulled out a knife and began attacking those close to him. The situation quickly caused a panic aboard the train, with many people attempting to get to safety and notify authorities about what was happening using the emergency intercom system. However, some chose to take on the attacker directly, putting their own lives at risk in an attempt to disarm Hung and prevent further attacks on other passengers. Among them were a 17-year-old boy identified by the last name of Lu and a 27-year-old man by the last name of Su. Lu and Su struggled with Hung and were able to pry the knife he was initially wielding out of his hands. Unfortunately, Hung had come prepared with 2 other knives and slashed at both of them, causing injuries to Lu's chest, shoulder, and arm, and a long gash to Su's face. Eventually, though, with the help of other Good Samaritans, the 17 and 27-year-old were able to restrain Hung. They were joined by employees of the transit system once the subway pulled into the next station and held Hung until police could arrive and place him under arrest. Lu and Su were both hospitalized as a result of the injuries they sustained during the attack, though are now said to be recovering well. Understandably, both men were praised for their courageous actions following the incident, with the mayor of Taichung quickly announcing that the city would cover their medical expenses and that they would also be given lifetime free passes to ride the transit system. The crime has struck a particularly eerie chord with the Taiwanese public because it happened on the exact 10-year anniversary of another disturbing knife attack aboard a subway. The so-called Taipei metro attack took place on May 21st, 2014, and had a much darker ending than this week's incident. It resulted in the deaths of 4 people and left 24 others injured after a 21-year-old college student named Cheng Jie went on a stabbing spree armed with a long fruit knife. Cheng was ultimately executed for the crime in 2016. Due to the similarities between the incidents and the significant overlap in their dates, police say that they are now investigating whether Hung was inspired by the previous attack. However, so far no information has been released confirming or denying this. All we know right now is that Hung has a history of mental illness and is a resident of Kaohsiung, a city about 100 miles south of Taichung. He is said to be a nursing student and reportedly arrived in Taichung the day before the attack. The 20-year-old's family members say that they had no idea what his plans were or even that he had been traveling. The situation is still developing. Authorities in the northern Nigerian state of Kano say that at least 11 people are dead this week and more than a dozen others are injured following a terrifying arson attack at a mosque, a crime that was allegedly motivated by a family dispute over money. The disturbing situation took place on May 15th at a mosque located in the Gezawa local government area. According to reports, worshippers had gathered and were in the middle of morning prayers when suddenly smoke and flames began pouring into the building from multiple sides. Things became even more panicked when people tried to get to safety, only to realize that they were trapped inside. Unbeknownst to the victims, right before this, a man, later identified as 38-year-old Shafiu Abubakar, had allegedly doused the exterior of the mosque with gasoline. He had then locked the doors of the building before setting the place on fire. Though Good Samaritans rushed to the scene and were soon followed by police and other emergency responders, the flames spread incredibly quickly and burned intensely. So much so that some first responders initially thought that a bomb had been used in the attack. Unfortunately, it appears that there was also some kind of miscommunication, as according to local reports, no one actually contacted the local fire department. As a result, civilians were left to largely battle the blaze by themselves, adding to the deadliness of the incident. At the time of this recording, most sources state that 11 people died as a result of the arson attack. However, some others have put the death toll at 17 or even higher. An additional 13 people were hospitalized, while a number of other people sustained minor injuries. According to reports, Abu Bakr was arrested by police at the scene and has now been charged with arson, vandalism, and murder. During a subsequent confession, the 38-year-old allegedly told investigators that he carried out the attack because he felt cheated during the recent splitting of a family inheritance. He said he decided to get even by targeting some of these family members when they went to the mosque for morning prayers. Currently, police say that they are still investigating and that Abu Bakr remains in custody. Authorities in the Malaysian state of Johor say that 2 law enforcement officers are dead this week, and another has been left seriously injured following a violent ambush at a police station that is now being called a lone wolf terror attack. The incident began shortly before 2:45 a.m. on May 17th, when a pair of students, a 22-year-old man and a 21-year-old woman, arrived at the police station in question, located in the town of Ulu Tiram. Despite the late hour, the man and woman reportedly told officers that they wanted to talk to them about an alleged sexual assault that they claimed had happened roughly 2 years earlier. About 5 minutes after this, as this conversation was still going on, a masked 21-year-old man reportedly arrived at the station on a motorcycle. He immediately headed for the back of the building, where he began taking items out of a backpack. When one of the officers at the station, Constable Ahmed Azza, went to investigate, the 21-year-old allegedly stabbed him with a large knife. He then took Azza's service weapon and shot 2 other officers, Constable Muhammad Sayafik and Corporal Mohd Hasif, who, according to reports, had just returned to the station from a patrol. Sayafik was hit in the head, while Hasif was hit in the shoulder and waist. Despite his injuries, the corporal was apparently able to return fire, killing the 21-year-old attacker. Sadly, both of the young constables, who had reportedly each been on the job for less than 2 years, died of their injuries, while Hasif was taken to a local hospital in critical condition. While the name of the 21-year-old attacker has not been released at the time of this recording, authorities have said that he is a Malaysian citizen originally from Indonesia. After launching an investigation, they further alleged that the man has connections to a notorious Indonesia-based Islamic militant group known as Jemaah Islamiyah, or JI. JI was founded in the early 1990s with the goal of creating an Islamic caliphate in Southeast Asia. Since its inception, it has been responsible for a number of terror attacks in the region, most notably for the 2002 Bali nightclub bombings, which resulted in the deaths of more than 200 people. Despite this alleged connection and the acknowledgement that this week's attack was likely terror-related, Malaysian authorities have so far said that they do not believe JI was involved. Instead, they have called the 21-year-old a, quote, lone wolf, saying that they believe he acted on his own. Even so, it appears that police are still investigating whether or not the 21-year-old had accomplices. In the aftermath of the incident, a number of his family members were arrested and taken in for questioning. So were the 2 students who came to the police station just minutes before the attack began, presumably because police believe they were there to serve as a distraction. As for an official motive, nothing has been confirmed, though according to some local sources, the 21-year-old culprit may have been intending to steal weapons from the police station in addition to attacking officers. Right now, the investigation is still ongoing. An Australian mother and her friends and family have been left heartbroken and outraged this week after a young boy was allegedly killed by his own father, who had previously been in trouble for domestic violence-related offenses. According to reports, the nightmare began for Dr. Sophie Broom on the afternoon of May 19th, when her only son, Rowan, failed to return from a scheduled custody visit with his father, 38-year-old James Harrison. That day, Sophie had been at work, and her former husband had been allowed to take the 2-year-old as part of a planned visit at his home in the city of East Lismore. Harrison was supposed to drop Rowan back off sometime between 4 and 4:30 p.m. However, that never happened. Around this same time, Sophie contacted police and explained to them what was going on. Officers were sent to Harrison's home on College Street around 5:30. However, when there was no answer at the door, they left. At this point, Sophie began to fear that something terrible had happened and reportedly pleaded with police to force their way inside Harrison's house. Police allegedly told her that they couldn't do that, referring to the situation as a, quote, family court matter. It wasn't until more than 4 hours later, after calls from numerous other people came in, including Sophie's parents and one of Harrison's friends, that officers were finally sent back out to the residence. When they entered the home around 9:45, they made an awful discovery. Inside were the bodies of Rowan and Harrison. So far, their exact causes of death have not been released, though numerous local news outlets have reported that they died as the result of an elaborate poison gas system allegedly set up by Harrison that involved the use of carbon monoxide. In the wake of the devastating revelation, many have expressed their outrage over the police response to the situation, arguing that there was no reason for the 4-hour delay between the first and second visits to the crime scene. This outrage grew even more when it was reported that Harrison had previously been in trouble with police for domestic violence-related incidents against Sophie. According to these reports, Sophie and Harrison split up last year, not long after moving to the East Lismore area. When they did, Harrison allegedly became extremely controlling and tried to dictate how Sophie lived her life. An apprehended violence order was issued against Harrison in August of 2023 after Sophie accused him of assaulting, stalking, and intimidating her. That order was extended by a court just 2 months ago. In a gut-wrenching statement released by Sophie and her family following the crime this week, the mother attempted to explain the profound grief of her loss, as well as the anger and sadness she felt about the way her son's life had been taken. That statement read in part, quote, "Our beloved Rowan was taken from us in the most unfathomable way. Rowan was a beautiful, joyful, and adored little boy. He had so many amazing qualities, and his short life was filled with rich and happy experiences. He loved music, the beach, swimming, his friends, and his family. He touched the hearts of everyone lucky enough to be in his world. Rowan's life was ended by an evil and cowardly act of violence perpetrated by a person he should have been able to trust the most. There are no possible excuses for this hurt and no end to the pain that it has caused. We are devastated. We will love and miss Rowan forever." Authorities in the Brazilian state of Pará say that a 29-year-old woman was accused of murder last week, more than 2 months after she allegedly killed her foster son, a crime that was apparently the culmination of a disturbing secret affair between them. The whole thing began sometime on March 1st, when police were called to a home in the city of Marabá. When they arrived, they came across 29-year-old Jessica Barbosa Sampaio, who was kneeling on the ground next to the body of a man. Jessica identified the man as her 21-year-old foster son, Samuel Alves, and said that he had been killed when he was playing around with a shotgun that accidentally went off. At first, no one apparently had any reason to doubt Jessica's story. She and her former husband had taken Samuel in when he was just 14 years old, when he ran away from his parents' house looking for a better life. Jessica's husband had found Samuel work at a local pottery business, and since then, by all accounts, the three had lived as a happy family. However, during a 2-month-long investigation, detectives reportedly uncovered a shocking secret. At some point, Jessica had apparently started a romantic relationship with Samuel. They also found a pretty large inconsistency in the 29-year-old's story. Despite her insistence that Samuel had been killed accidentally while playing with the shotgun, the actual wound that killed him was to the back of his head. Based on this, as well as further details they managed to uncover, authorities now believe that Jessica killed Samuel after he told her that he no longer wanted to continue their secret relationship. On the day the 21-year-old went to move out, she allegedly shot him as revenge. Jessica was taken into custody on May 16th and is now being detained on suspicion of murder. Police say that in the meantime, they are still investigating exactly when Jessica started her relationship with Samuel and have suggested that they may also pursue charges related to this if they find out that he was underage at the time. Authorities in Thailand's Chiang Rai province say that they are investigating quite the strange theft case this week after a man was caught on surveillance video stealing a bunch of underwear while he himself was wearing very little clothing. According to reports, the bizarre incident took place at around 6 a.m. on May 8th, when a 44-year-old man named Sompap was at his home in Muang Chiang Rai district. He was just about to make breakfast when he heard what sounded like a car pulling up outside. Because of a foot injury, Sompap wasn't able to get to his front door right away. By the time he made it outside, the car was gone. As it turned out, so were 8 pairs of his underwear that he had left out there to dry. Since Sompap had a surveillance camera that recorded the exterior of his property, he decided to go and have a look at what it had captured. When he reviewed the footage, he was pretty surprised by what he found. His underwear had been stolen by an unknown man who was also only dressed in underwear at the time. Annoyed and likely very confused, Sompap posted the footage to Facebook asking if anyone in the area knew this man. It wasn't long before the perpetrator reached out himself to confess. While the man's name wasn't released in any of the reports we came across, apparently the man claimed that the whole thing had been a dare. His friend who was with him in the car had dared him to steal the underwear, and for some reason he decided to do it. Following this admission, the man agreed to meet Sompap at a local police station to discuss things further. He also apparently offered to give the underwear back, though Sompap said that he would prefer to just buy new ones, which, is pretty understandable, I think. Anyway, at the time of this recording, it's unclear what, if any, charges the underwear thief will be facing. Authorities in the Chinese province of Guixi say that 2 people are dead this week and at least 10 others are injured following a terrifying knife attack at an elementary school. The incident took place at around noon on May 20th at the Mingdi Primary School in the city of Guixi. According to reports, a woman, later identified as a 44-year-old by the last name of Pan, walked onto school property armed with a fruit knife and began attacking multiple people. She was quickly arrested by police. Unfortunately, almost no additional information has been released about the case at this time, though it's said that a total of 6 people were rushed to a nearby hospital due to injuries sustained during the attack. Sadly, 2 of the victims succumbed to their injuries, though the other 4 are now said to be in stable condition. A further 6 people reportedly suffered minor injuries while trying to flee during the attack. At the time of this recording, police say that they are still investigating, though have not commented about a potential motive behind the disturbing crime. The situation is still developing. Authorities in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh announced a dramatic twist in a disturbing murder case this week, revealing that the star witness in the investigation had now become the prime suspect and had been arrested for killing 6 of his own family members. The horrifying situation began on May 11th, when police were called to a home in Palapur village in the city of Sitapur. They arrived to find the bodies of 6 people. They were quickly identified as 45-year-old Anurag Singh, his wife Priyanka, the couple's 3 young children, and Anurag's mother, 60-year-old Savitri Devi. Some of the family members had suffered gunshot wounds, while others appeared to have been beaten with a blunt object. After doing an initial examination of the scene, as well as speaking with those close to the victims, police came up with a theory as to what had happened. According to reports, this theory was heavily influenced by Anurag's brother Ajit, who quickly became an important witness. Ajit told authorities that his brother was an alcoholic and that for a while now his family had been making plans to get him help. He was actually scheduled to go to a rehabilitation center in a few days' time. However, before that could happen, he got into an argument with his wife and their mother. During the argument, Ajit said Anurag had flown into a rage, fatally attacking his family before turning his weapon on himself. This all seemed to make sense until medical examiners took a closer look at all of the bodies and started to have doubts about whether Anurag's wounds were self-inflicted. When Ajit was confronted about this, his statements apparently started to grow more and more inconsistent. Eventually, he confessed that everything that he had said up until that point was a lie. During subsequent questioning, Ajit stated that he had planned and carried out the murders due to an ongoing dispute over land and a debt between him and his brother. This dispute had started when their father died the previous year, leaving them to repay a loan that he had taken out to improve their farming business. That loan was for 3.5 million rupees, or about $42,000 US. At first, the brothers had agreed to split the debt. However, Ajit hadn't been able to come up with his half of the money. He already had previous debts, so he wanted Anurag to take care of the entire sum himself. Despite this, he also demanded his share of their parents' land and property. When Anurag refused to pay Ajit's half of the loan and still give him half of everything, Ajit turned against him. He also decided the best way to solve his problem was if Anurag and his family were out of the picture entirely. In another dark twist, the gun he allegedly used to commit the murders also belonged to their father. Following this confession, Ajit was arrested and currently remains in custody. Police say that they do not believe he acted alone, and at the time of this recording are still searching for his suspected accomplices. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.